If you wake up every morning feeling like you're chasing something but never quite catching it, this message is for you. Because the truth is, you don't need to find the world's approval. You need to find yourself. And the moment you do, everything else will follow. When you wake up in the morning, you are given the most valuable gift life can ever offer, a brand new beginning. The night has washed away the exhaustion of yesterday, and the morning light invites you to write a new chapter. But what do most people do the moment their eyes open? They reach for their phone. They scroll through social media, check notifications, dive into the chaos of emails, and immediately let the outside world dictate the tone of their day. From the very first minute, they surrender control. They hand over their peace, their energy, and their focus to the noise of everyone else's agenda. And because of that, they spend the rest of the day feeling reactive instead of proactive, scattered instead of centered, and drained instead of empowered. Starting the day with yourself means reclaiming that first hour of your life as sacred territory. It means declaring that before the world gets your attention, you give your attention to your own soul. It's not selfish, it's survival. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and yet so many people try. They rush into obligations, try to meet expectations, and bend themselves into shapes that please others, all while ignoring the person who matters most, themselves. By beginning the day with yourself, you are making a statement that your life will not be controlled by outside forces, but guided by inner strength. That decision sets the foundation for everything that follows. The power of the morning lies in its silence. Before the world starts demanding your energy, you have a window of stillness where clarity can enter. If you allow yourself to sit in that silence through prayer, meditation, reflection, or journaling, you reconnect with your deepest self. You hear the thoughts you usually suppress. You notice the emotions you often ignore. You give your mind and heart the chance to align before stepping into the busyness of the day. Imagine the difference between a person who starts the day centered and a person who starts the day distracted. One moves with direction, calmness, and intention. The other moves with confusion, urgency, and chaos. The gap between those two people widens every single day until their lives look completely different. Beginning your day with yourself is also an act of discipline. It requires resisting the urge to consume what is easiest and instead choosing what is meaningful. It's easy to pick up your phone and let your brain be flooded with dopamine from other people's lives. It's harder to sit with your own thoughts, face your fears, and focus on your goals. But the harder choice always produces the stronger person. When you choose to discipline yourself in the morning, you are training your mind to obey your higher calling instead of your lower impulses. Over time, this creates resilience. It builds self-trust. It teaches you that you are capable of leading yourself before trying to lead anyone else. There is also a psychological truth hidden in the way you start your day. The first moments after waking shape your mindset for the rest of the day. If you begin with gratitude, you carry a sense of abundance into everything you do. If you begin with self-reflection, you carry awareness into your conversations and decisions. If you begin with prayer or affirmations, you carry faith and confidence into your challenges. But if you begin with distraction, you carry anxiety. If you begin with comparison, you carry inadequacy. If you begin with gossip or negativity, you carry poison. The morning is like a seed. Whatever you plant in those first moments will grow into the fruit of your entire day. Many of the world's most successful and fulfilled individuals guard their mornings with fierce discipline. They wake up early, not because it is trendy, but because they understand the sacredness of that time. They use those hours to think, to learn, to visualize, and to create. They know that the morning is not just a time to prepare for the day. It is the time to prepare for life. It is the foundation upon which victories are built. When you study their routines, you will notice a common thread. They start with themselves. They pour into their minds before pouring into the world. They nurture their spirits before facing the storms. They set intentions before they take actions. Starting the day with yourself also helps you avoid living life on autopilot. Too many people are trapped in cycles of repetition. They wake up, go through the motions, and repeat yesterday without ever questioning if yesterday's pattern is leading them to tomorrow's dream. But when you pause in the morning to reconnect with yourself, you step outside of that cycle. You become intentional. You begin to ask deeper questions. What kind of person do I want to be today? What energy do I want to carry into the spaces I enter? What choices can I make today that align with the life I'm building? Those questions awaken you from the sleep of routine and remind you that every day is a chance to create, not just to survive. To start the day with yourself is also to recognize your worth. It is to declare that your mind deserves clarity, your soul deserves peace, and your body deserves care. It is to acknowledge that you are not just a machine built to produce results for others, but a human being with dreams, desires, and dignity. Taking time for yourself in the morning is an act of self-respect. It's telling the world, I matter enough to meet with myself before I meet with you. That one shift in mindset can change how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you respond to stress, and how you pursue opportunities. When you anchor your mornings in yourself, you stop being easily swayed by the storms of the day. Problems still come, challenges still arise, people still disappoint, but you face them with grounded strength. Instead of reacting to life, you respond with wisdom. Instead of being controlled by circumstances, you control your choices. The world may try to pull you in 100 directions, but you stay aligned because you already began the day connected to your core. This is the true power of starting the day with yourself. It doesn't remove life's difficulties, but it gives you the clarity and resilience to rise above them. Most people go through life chasing a definition of success that was handed to them by someone else. From childhood, society whispers in your ear, get the best grades, secure the highest paying job, buy the biggest house, drive the flashiest car, and post about it so everyone knows you've made it. That becomes the measuring stick, the standard you feel forced to live up to. But here's the problem. When you measure your life by society's definition of success, you often end up winning a race you never wanted to run in the first place. You might reach the finish line and discover that what you worked so hard for doesn't fulfill you, doesn't excite you, and doesn't feel like you. This is why it is essential to redefine success for yourself, and not just once in your life, but every single day. Because success is not a final destination, it is a moving target. It is not a single achievement, it is a daily alignment with who you are and who you want to become. Redefining success daily is about stepping into each morning with fresh eyes and asking yourself, what does success mean for me today? Sometimes success will mean closing a massive deal, finishing an important project, or achieving a milestone. But other times, success will mean spending time with your family, taking care of your health, or giving yourself permission to rest without guilt. Success changes as you change, and if you don't allow your definition to evolve, you risk trapping yourself in an outdated version of life. Too many people are living according to a definition of success they set 10 years ago, never stopping to ask if it still reflects their values, their passions, or their purpose. By redefining success daily, you give yourself the freedom to live a life that grows with you instead of confining yourself to old standards. Consider how empowering it feels when you realize that success doesn't have to be measured by comparison to others. The world trains us to compare. Who has more money, more followers, more recognition, more status? But comparison is a thief of joy. Every time you measure your success by someone else's life, you are dishonoring your own journey. You are ignoring your unique path, your unique pace, and your unique purpose. Redefining success daily breaks that cycle. It reminds you that your life is yours alone, and the only meaningful measure of success is whether or not you are becoming the person you are meant to be. That could mean choosing peace over pressure, growth over comfort, or authenticity over approval. This daily redefinition also keeps you from falling into the trap of living on autopilot. When success becomes an unconscious checklist, graduate, get the job, buy the house, retire, you stop asking if those goals truly matter to you. You simply keep moving forward, climbing a ladder that may be leaning against the wrong wall. But when you take a moment each day to redefine success, you wake yourself up from the trance of routine. You look at your day not as another repetition of yesterday, but as a unique opportunity to design your life with intention. It allows you to prioritize what truly matters, to focus on what gives meaning to your day instead of what merely fills it with activity. Redefining success daily also protects your mental and emotional well-being. Think about how often people feel like failures simply because they did not accomplish some huge task in a single day. They set unrealistic expectations, and when they fall short, they feel unworthy. But success doesn't always have to be monumental. Some days, success is simply showing up. Some days, it is surviving, healing, or taking one small step forward. By allowing yourself to redefine success based on your current reality, you extend grace to yourself. You stop punishing yourself for being human, and instead, you start celebrating the progress you are making. That shift in mindset removes unnecessary guilt and replaces it with gratitude. This principle is not just about being flexible, it is about being deeply intentional. Redefining success daily requires you to know yourself, to ask powerful questions, and to listen to your inner voice. What do I value most right now? What outcome would make me proud if I achieved it today? What can I do today that reflects the life I want to create tomorrow? These questions are not always comfortable because they force you to confront whether or not you are living in alignment with your truth. But they are necessary because without them, it is too easy to drift. Too easy to get swept up in the expectations of others and forget that this is your life, not theirs. There is also an incredible freedom in knowing that success can be redefined as often as needed. If yesterday you felt that success was completing a project, and today you feel that success is reconnecting with your children, that is not inconsistency, that is wisdom. Life is not static, and neither should your definition of success be. By allowing it to shift, you honor the seasons of your life. You respect your current needs, your growth, and your changing circumstances. This flexibility does not make you weaker. It makes you stronger, more adaptable, and more aware of yourself than ever before. When you start practicing the discipline of redefining success daily, something remarkable happens. You stop being consumed by the pressure of achieving some distant, grand version of success that feels overwhelming, and you begin to experience the fulfillment of small, daily victories. You realize that success is not a mountaintop you conquer once, but a path you walk every day. And as you walk that path, redefining success each step of the way, you give yourself permission to create a life that is not only successful in the eyes of the world, but deeply meaningful in the eyes of your own soul. In a world that constantly demands your attention, solitude has become one of the most undervalued treasures of human existence. We live in an age where noise is celebrated, where being constantly busy is mistaken for being productive, and where silence feels uncomfortable. Every moment is filled with distractions, notifications buzzing, conversations flowing, entertainment streaming, information pouring in from all directions. In such a world, solitude is not just rare, it is resisted. People run from it because they are afraid of what they might hear when everything else goes quiet. But the truth is, solitude is not emptiness, and it is not loneliness. Solitude is the space where clarity is born, where strength is renewed, and where the real you finally has the chance to speak. To embrace solitude is to embrace one of the greatest sources of power you will ever know. When you step into solitude, you step into a space free from performance, free from expectations, and free from comparison. It is the one environment where you don't have to prove anything to anyone, where the masks can come off and the noise can be silenced. In solitude, you reconnect with your essence. You remember who you are apart from titles, achievements, or other people's opinions. You see yourself not as the world defines you, but as you truly are. This is why solitude is not a weakness. It is a mirror. It reflects back the truth that often gets buried under the weight of busyness. It is in these quiet moments that you rediscover the core of your values, the depth of your desires, and the clarity of your purpose. Many people confuse solitude with isolation, but they are not the same. Isolation is running away from the world because of fear, pain, or avoidance. Solitude is choosing to step away for a moment in order to return stronger, wiser, and more intentional. It is not escape, it is empowerment. When you embrace solitude, you are not cutting yourself off from life. You are preparing yourself to engage with life at a higher level. Just as a warrior retreats to sharpen their sword before battle, you retreat into solitude to sharpen your mind, to strengthen your spirit, and to restore your energy. Without these moments of stillness, you are constantly pouring out without ever refilling, and sooner or later, that leads to exhaustion, confusion, and burnout. The power of solitude is that it strips away the distractions that keep you from facing yourself. When you are alone, you cannot hide behind other people's voices or opinions. You are left with your own thoughts, your own fears, and your own dreams. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. Many avoid solitude because the silence confronts them with the things they have been running from, the doubts they ignore, the wounds they suppress, the questions they refuse to answer. But facing those things is not punishment, it is liberation. Because the moment you stop running from yourself, you begin healing. The moment you face your truth in solitude, you start building a life that is authentic rather than artificial. Solitude also nurtures creativity and innovation in a way that constant noise never can. Some of the greatest ideas, inventions, and works of art in history were born in solitude. It is when the mind is free from outside chatter that imagination begins to flow. When you step away from the noise, your brain is able to connect ideas, notice patterns, and generate solutions that you would never discover in the middle of distraction. Solitude gives you the mental space to dream, to create, to explore possibilities that others might never see. If you want to access your deepest creativity, you need to give yourself the gift of being alone with your thoughts. Another aspect of solitude that cannot be ignored is its ability to bring peace. Life is full of stress, demands, and constant pressures pulling you in multiple directions. If you are always surrounded by noise, you are always in a state of reaction, and that reaction drains you of peace. But when you choose solitude, you create space for stillness, and in that stillness, your heart calms, your mind clears, and your body resets. Peace is not something that comes from outside. It is cultivated within. Solitude is the soil where peace grows. Without it, you may survive the chaos of life, but you will never rise above it with calmness and strength. Embracing solitude also deepens your relationship with yourself. You cannot truly know who you are if you are never alone with yourself. People spend so much time trying to connect with others, but neglect the most important relationship of all, the one they have with themselves. Solitude is the classroom where you learn yourself, understand your patterns, discover your triggers, and recognize your potential. It is where self-awareness is cultivated. And with self-awareness comes growth, because you cannot change what you do not first recognize. The more comfortable you become in solitude, the more confident and grounded you become in every other area of life. It is also important to recognize that solitude doesn't always mean hours of withdrawal. Sometimes it can be found in small pockets of time. A quiet walk in the early morning, sitting with a journal for 15 minutes, pausing in silence before bed. These are all opportunities to step into solitude. You don't need to escape to a mountain or monastery to embrace its power. You only need the willingness to turn down the noise and listen inwardly. Consistently making space for solitude, no matter how small, accumulates over time into a well of strength, clarity, and peace that you can draw from in moments of need. When you practice solitude daily, you begin to notice a shift in the way you carry yourself. You become less anxious about what others think because you've spent time hearing your own voice. You become less reactive to chaos because you've built stillness within. You become less dependent on validation because you've learned how to validate yourself. Solitude teaches you that you are whole even when no one else is around. And when you know that truth, you walk through the world with unshakable confidence. One of the greatest obstacles to personal growth is the tendency to cling to yesterday's version of yourself. Human beings are creatures of habit, and our minds are designed to find comfort in the familiar. Even when the familiar is painful, unfulfilling, or limiting, it feels safer than the unknown. This is why so many people wake up every morning and live on repeat, carrying the weight of their past identities into their present reality. They allow who they were yesterday to dictate who they can be today, and in doing so, they trap themselves in a cycle where real transformation becomes impossible. To live a life of purpose, freedom, and growth, you must be willing to break free from yesterday's identity. Yesterday's identity is shaped by your past experiences, your old beliefs, and the stories you've told yourself for years. Maybe someone once told you that you weren't smart enough, and you still live with the label of being average, even though you've outgrown it. Maybe you failed at something years ago, and now you carry the belief that you're a failure, even though that single event never defined your worth. Maybe you've built your life around a role, a career, a relationship, a status that once gave you meaning, but no longer aligns with who you are becoming. Yesterday's identity is heavy because it's outdated, and the longer you hold on to it, the more it keeps you from stepping into your true potential. Breaking free from yesterday's identity requires courage because it demands that you let go of the comfort of the known. It means being willing to shed the labels that have defined you and embrace the uncertainty of growth. This is why so many resist it, because change threatens the ego's desire for stability. The ego wants to cling to what it knows, even if what it knows is broken, small, or limiting. But real freedom only comes when you stop asking, "Who have I always been?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming?" That shift in perspective is the beginning of transformation. Think about how often people imprison themselves in their own stories. They say things like, "I've always been shy," "I'm just not good with money," "I'm not a leader," or "That's just who I am." These are not truths. They are narratives shaped by yesterday. The moment you realize that you don't have to carry those narratives forward, you reclaim your power. You are not bound to who you were. You are free to reinvent who you are. Every sunrise gives you permission to write a new story, but only if you're willing to stop rereading the old one. Breaking free also requires forgiveness, not just of others, but of yourself. Many people stay stuck in yesterday's identity because they cannot let go of past mistakes. They continue to punish themselves for choices they made when they didn't know better, for opportunities they missed, or for seasons when they fell short. They replay those moments over and over until they become part of their identity. But mistakes are not identities. They are teachers. When you forgive yourself, you release the grip of yesterday and open the door to a new identity that is no longer defined by guilt, shame, or regret. Forgiveness is the bridge between who you were and who you can be. Another truth about yesterday's identity is that it often reflects the expectations of others more than your own desires. From childhood, many people shape themselves into what parents, teachers, or society expect them to be. They adopt careers, behaviors, or lifestyles, not because they align with their deepest calling, but because they fit the mold of what others wanted for them. Over time, they lose touch with their authentic self and live behind a mask of borrowed identities. To break free, you must strip away those expectations and ask yourself, what do I truly want? Who do I truly desire to be? That process of peeling back layers can be uncomfortable, but it is also liberating, because underneath the roles and labels is the real you waiting to emerge. Breaking free from yesterday's identity doesn't mean rejecting your past. It means learning from it without being chained to it. Your past can be a teacher, but it should never be a prison. The pain you experienced, the failures you endured, and the lessons you learned are valuable, but they are not definitions. They are chapters in your story, not the entire book. When you carry them forward as wisdom instead of identity, you transform them from weights that hold you down into wings that lift you higher. Every day offers you the chance to step into a new identity, but you must be intentional about it. This requires creating habits, environments, and mindsets that align with the person you want to become rather than the person you used to be. If yesterday's identity was rooted in fear, then today's identity must be built on courage. If yesterday's identity was shaped by doubt, then today's identity must be shaped by faith. If yesterday's identity was about survival, then today's identity can be about thriving. Transformation is not a single event. It is a daily decision to release what no longer serves you and embrace what moves you forward. The beauty of breaking free from yesterday's identity is that it opens the door to limitless possibilities. Once you realize you are not confined to who you were, you begin to see the world differently. Opportunities that once felt out of reach become attainable. Dreams that once seemed unrealistic begin to feel possible. You stop limiting yourself by the boundaries of yesterday and start expanding into the vast potential of today. Each time you release an old label, an old fear, or an old story, you create space for a new identity to take root, an identity that is aligned with your purpose, your vision, and your future. Inside every person is an inner compass, a quiet voice, an inner pull, a sense of direction that tries to guide you toward what is right for you. It is not loud like the demands of the world, and it does not scream like fear or anxiety. Instead, it whispers, it nudges, it gives you subtle signals that are easy to ignore if you are too distracted, too busy, or too consumed with what everyone else thinks. But if you slow down, if you pay attention, if you make space for stillness, you begin to notice that your inner compass has always been there, pointing you toward the path that aligns with your deepest truth. To live fully and authentically, you must learn to listen to it. The problem is that most people are conditioned from a young age to silence their inner compass. From childhood, they are taught to prioritize external approval over internal conviction. They learn to ask, what will people think? What do others expect of me? What path is the safest? And in chasing those questions, they lose the ability to hear the quieter but wiser voice within. Society praises conformity and punishes individuality, and so many grow up doubting themselves, second-guessing their instincts, and relying on the opinions of others for direction. But the truth is, no one outside of you can tell you who you are meant to be or what choices will bring you fulfillment. Only your inner compass knows that. Listening to your inner compass requires trust, and trust requires practice. At first, you may not feel confident in distinguishing between intuition and fear, between inner wisdom and outside influence. But with practice, you begin to notice the difference. Fear screams with urgency, but intuition speaks with calm clarity. Outside influence pressures you to fit in, but your inner compass guides you to stand out in ways that honor your values. One feels heavy, the other feels light. One feels constricting, the other feels expansive. The more you practice listening, the easier it becomes to identify the voice of your compass amidst the noise. Your inner compass is not concerned with immediate gratification. It is focused on alignment. It doesn't ask, what will make me comfortable right now? It asks, what will move me closer to the life I am meant to live? That's why following your compass often feels uncomfortable in the moment. It may guide you to walk away from relationships that no longer serve you, even though loneliness scares you. It may tell you to pursue a vision that feels risky, even though security tempts you to stay where you are. It may urge you to speak up for your truth, even though silence would be easier. Listening to your inner compass requires courage, because it will rarely lead you to the easy road. It will lead you to the meaningful one. There are countless examples of people who ignored their inner compass and paid the price. They chose careers that looked good on paper, but drained their soul. They stayed in environments that suffocated them because they didn't want to disappoint others. They ignored the small voice that told them to change direction, only to realize years later that they had been climbing a ladder leaning against the wrong wall. Regret often comes not from failing, but from knowing deep down that you betrayed yourself by refusing to listen to your own guidance. That is why ignoring your inner compass is one of the most dangerous decisions you can make. It leads to a life that looks fine on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. On the other hand, there is something undeniably powerful about people who consistently listen to their inner compass. They move with a quiet confidence because they are no longer enslaved by the opinions of others. They take bold steps, not because they are fearless, but because they trust their inner direction more than they fear external rejection. They live with authenticity, making decisions that align with their values even if no one else understands. And as a result, They experience fulfillment, not because their journey is easy, but because it is true to who they are. One of the most effective ways to strengthen your connection to your inner compass is to create space for reflection. Solitude, journaling, prayer, or meditation are practices that clear away the noise so you can hear yourself more clearly. If your life is filled with constant noise, your compass gets drowned out. But when you pause, you notice the subtle signals. An uneasy feeling when you're out of alignment, a spark of excitement when you're on the right path, a gentle sense of peace when you make a decision that honors your truth. These are not accidents. They are the signals of your compass trying to guide you. It is also important to understand that your inner compass is not just about big, life-changing decisions. It guides you in the small, daily choices that eventually shape your future. It may prompt you to rest when your body is exhausted, even though the world glorifies busyness. It may push you to learn something new, even though it feels inconvenient. It may encourage you to reach out to someone, even though you're tempted to stay silent. These small moments matter, because every choice either strengthens your alignment or pulls you further away from it. The more you follow the compass in small decisions, the more prepared you are to trust it in big ones. Listening to your inner compass also frees you from the endless cycle of seeking external validation. When you stop basing your decisions on whether others will approve, you reclaim your freedom. You no longer live for applause because you have found something more powerful than applause: integrity. Integrity is living in alignment with your truth, even when no one else sees it, claps for it, or agrees with it. That is what your compass is constantly trying to lead you toward: a life where your actions, your values, and your identity are consistent. When people think of transformation, they often imagine it as a sudden, dramatic shift, a single moment that changes everything. They dream of grand breakthroughs, overnight success, or a powerful event that instantly launches them into the life they want. But the truth is, transformation rarely happens in one big leap. It happens through consistent, intentional, small actions that are aligned with who you are becoming. The small things you do every day may not look impressive to others, but they are the building blocks of your future. The path to extraordinary results is paved with ordinary decisions that are repeated consistently until they create momentum that cannot be stopped. The power of small, aligned actions lies in their compounding effect. A single workout may not change your body, but a year of consistent movement transforms your health. Writing one page may not make you an author, but writing one page every day eventually produces a book. Saving a small amount of money may not make you wealthy, but saving consistently creates financial freedom. What matters is not the size of the action, it is the consistency and alignment of the action. When you take small steps that are aligned with your vision, they compound over time into results that feel miraculous to everyone watching, but to you, they are simply the product of discipline. Alignment is the key word here. It is not enough to simply take action. You must take action that reflects your values, your goals, and your vision for the future. Many people stay busy, but their busyness is not aligned. They fill their days with activity, but make little progress because their actions are scattered, reactive, or focused on the wrong things. True progress requires you to pause and ask, does this action move me closer to who I want to become? If the answer is yes, even the smallest step matters. If the answer is no, then all the effort in the world will only lead you further away from your purpose. Small aligned actions may look slower than frantic activity, but they always lead you exactly where you need to go. The beauty of small actions is that they are accessible. Anyone can start where they are. You don't need perfect conditions, unlimited resources, or flawless plans. You only need the willingness to take the next right step. Too many people delay their growth because they are waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, the perfect level of confidence, or the perfect set of circumstances. But perfection never comes. Waiting for perfection is the same as waiting for nothing. Small, aligned actions remove the pressure of perfection by reminding you that progress is not about doing everything at once. It's about doing something today that moves you forward. Another reason small actions are so powerful is that they build trust with yourself. Every time you follow through on a small commitment, you strengthen your belief that you are someone who takes action. You prove to yourself that you can be trusted with your own goals. This self-trust is priceless because it is the foundation of confidence. Confidence is not built from talking about what you want to do. It is built from consistently doing what you said you would do. Each small step becomes evidence that you are capable, and that evidence becomes the fuel that drives bigger steps in the future. Small aligned actions also protect you from the overwhelming weight of huge goals. If you only focus on the big picture, it's easy to feel discouraged. The gap between where you are and where you want to be feels impossible to cross. But when you break that big vision into small daily steps, the journey becomes manageable. Instead of being paralyzed by the enormity of your dreams, you become energized by the simplicity of your next step. It is in these small, consistent actions that momentum is created, and momentum is far more valuable than motivation. Motivation comes and goes, but momentum carries you forward even when you don't feel like moving. It is important to remember that small, aligned actions are not about speed. They are about direction. A single step in the right direction is worth more than 100 steps in the wrong one. Sometimes people rush, chasing results without considering alignment, and they end up further away from their vision. But when you prioritize alignment over speed, you ensure that every action, no matter how small, is contributing to your long-term growth. This is why patience is essential. Small steps may feel slow, but they are steady, and steady always outlasts fast. Small aligned actions also create resilience because they are sustainable. Anyone can make a big push for a few days or weeks, but only small, consistent actions can be maintained over the long haul. Sustainability matters because true transformation is not about temporary change. It is about permanent growth. When your actions are small enough to be repeated daily and aligned enough to matter, they naturally become part of your identity. At that point, you no longer have to force progress. It flows out of who you are becoming. Finally, small aligned actions serve as a daily reminder that you have power over your life. When you take a step, no matter how small, you reclaim authority over your story. You stop feeling like life is something that just happens to you and begin to see that life is something you are actively shaping. You realize that you don't need to control everything in order to move forward. You only need to control the choices you make today. And in making those choices, you affirm that your life is not defined by massive leaps, but by consistent steps taken in the right direction. There is a difference between building a life that looks successful on the outside and building a life that feels fulfilling on the inside. Many people spend their entire existence chasing after what the world tells them they should want: status, recognition, wealth, approval, only to reach those milestones and feel an emptiness that no achievement can fill. The reason is simple. They built a future that impressed others but betrayed themselves. The greatest tragedy is not failure. The greatest tragedy is reaching the end of your life and realizing you climbed a mountain that was never yours to climb. To build a future that matches your soul, you must first understand that your soul already knows what it longs for. And your job is not to silence it, but to listen deeply and give it room to guide your choices. Building such a future requires brutal honesty with yourself. You cannot keep pretending that the life you are living or the path you are pursuing feels right if it doesn't. Too many people silence their inner voice because it conflicts with the expectations of others, parents, society, culture, or peers. But your soul doesn't negotiate. It whispers, it nudges, and if ignored long enough, it screams. When you ignore the voice inside you, you may still achieve, but your achievements will feel hollow. True alignment happens when your actions, your goals, and your daily habits reflect the deeper truth of who you are. The first step, then, is to strip away the noise and ask yourself difficult questions. What do I truly value? What brings me peace? What excites me? What would I choose if no one was watching or judging? The future that matches your soul is not always the future that looks glamorous or easy. In fact, it often requires sacrifice. It might mean walking away from opportunities that look shiny but don't resonate with your values. It might mean disappointing people who expected you to take a certain path. It might mean enduring seasons of uncertainty as you step into the unknown. But the alternative is far more costly, living a life that is comfortable but lifeless, predictable but passionless, safe but suffocating. When you commit to building a future that matches your soul, you choose depth over appearance, substance over performance, and fulfillment over conformity. One of the most important truths about building this kind of future is that it is a daily construction project, not a one-time decision. It is not enough to say, I want to live a meaningful life. You must translate that intention into small, tangible actions that shape your days, your weeks, and your years. Every choice you make either reinforces or undermines your alignment. The relationships you invest in, the work you pursue, the habits you cultivate, and the boundaries you enforce all add up to the structure of your future. A future that matches your soul is not created in the distance. It is being built brick by brick in the present. The reason many people fail to build this kind of future is that they prioritize external validation over internal satisfaction. They make decisions to impress, to fit in, to earn applause, or to avoid criticism. But here's the harsh truth. No amount of external applause can compensate for the internal misery of living a life that is not yours. At some point, you must decide whose voice matters more, the voices of others or the voice of your soul. When you choose the latter, you discover a freedom that cannot be bought, because nothing is more liberating than living a life that feels authentically yours. Another aspect of building a soul-aligned future is learning patience with the process. The world glorifies speed, but your soul values depth. You cannot rush growth, healing, or clarity. Some seasons will feel slow, some doors will close, and some paths will twist unexpectedly, but all of it is shaping you for a life that feels whole. A tree doesn't bear fruit overnight. It takes root, it weathers storms, it grows silently before it blossoms. The same is true for your life. If you trust the process and remain faithful to your soul's calling, you will eventually see the harvest of the seeds you planted long ago. It is also essential to surround yourself with people who encourage your authentic journey rather than pull you away from it. A future that matches your soul cannot be built in environments that constantly pressure you to compromise your truth. You need community, but you need the right community. The kind that celebrates your alignment, respects your boundaries, and supports your vision even when it doesn't make sense to them. These people act as mirrors, reminding you of who you really are when the noise of the world threatens to distract you. Finally, building a future that matches your soul is about legacy, not just lifestyle. It is about asking yourself what kind of story you want your life to tell. Do you want your story to be about someone who conformed, who played it safe, who did what everyone else expected? Or do you want it to be about someone who had the courage to live authentically, to take risks that mattered, to create something that outlives them? Your future is not simply about comfort or convenience. It is about impact, meaning, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that your life reflects your soul.